Hello everyone. I've been getting a lot of requests to analyze the Klingon Empire fleet, so I thought why not? The Klingons have always fascinated me, and I always enjoyed a good Star Trek episode that gives us a deeper look into their culture. As usual, we'll analyze their military and their technology, and then we'll review their ships. At the end of the video, we'll do a complete analysis of their fleet, so let's begin. The Klingon Imperial Fleet, also referred to as the Klingon Defense Force or the Klingon Imperial Navy, are under the control of the Klingon High Command. There are two parts of the fleet, which contains a normal naval force and then the internal security force, which operates smaller ships and are in charge of policing and protecting the local areas of the Klingon Empire. The Klingon rank structure is split between warriors and officers. The enlisted rank is commonly referred to as warriors. Once a Klingon obtains a command, they must be vigilant and not show any weakness. Any signs of weakness would be an open invitation for someone to assassinate them and take over their position. This system seems to be a successful way to weed out any weak and incompetent leaders. Throughout my time watching Star Trek, I noticed any Klingons that lack any strength or even intelligence will eventually get themselves killed. The Klingon technology is quite advanced when it comes to weapons or anything that comes to their military. It's impressive that a warrior race like the Klingons were able to develop a powerful ship that can go against the Federation and the Romulans. They're well known for their cloaking technology, which was not invented by them. It was part of a trade exchange with the Romulans. The most common weapons used by the Klingons and many other races in the Star Trek universe are disruptors and photon torpedoes. Their weapon strength is not superior than other superpowers in the Beta and Alpha quadrant, but it carries enough of a punch to bring damage to their enemies. Disruptors are considered less elegant than phaser-based weapons, which are commonly used by the Federation. Disruptors are described as a thermal shock, blunt force against their targets. Of course, we can't forget about their other weapon, which are photon torpedoes that are armed with antimatter warheads, which can cause a massive explosion upon impact. Before we go over the Klingon ships within the fleet, we can't forget about the Klingons' main weapon, which is the bat'leth. Klingon warriors prefer the fight in close combat, which allows them to kill their enemies with a bat'leth. A lot of the best battle scenes in the Star Trek universe are due to the Klingons in my opinion. Their attack of Deep Space Nine is always one of my favorite battles to watch in Star Trek. For the Klingon ships, we will be using canon sources, but also some non-canon sources if I'm unable to find the dimensions of the ships. Starting out on the list is the D5 class battlecruiser, or the Devastator class, which was a large warship that served in the Klingon fleet during the mid-22nd century. It was often used as a patrol ship within the Empire, and was used as a personal flagship for a high-ranking admiral. During its time, it was an advanced ship. It was a lot more advanced than the DX class ship, which was a United Earth vessel before the creation of the Federation. The ship is 210 meters in length and 157 meters in width due to its wingspan. It has a max warp speed of 6 and is equipped with a cloaking device. It has a standard crew of 350, but it's able to fit up to 1400. It's armed with 4 heavy disruptor cannons and 1 photon torpedo launcher. It's also defended by a deflector shield. This class of ship is one of the oldest vessels on the list and is still used by the Klingon Empire. The D5 has been updated throughout the years to avoid being outgunned during patrol. Before we go over the well-known D7 class, we must have a brief review of another well-known class ship called the D6 class. The D6 class was described to be bigger than the D5 class and was highly maneuverable at sublight speeds. It was the first Klingon ship that was equipped with a warp core that could go up to warp 8. Just like other D5 class vessels, it was armed with a disruptor cannon and a photon torpedo launcher. Of course, it was defended by a deflector shield and a cloaking device. The D7 class cruiser is a very iconic ship within the Star Trek universe, known to be used by the Klingons and the Romulans. I will get into the reason why both empires use the same ship later in this video. This cruiser was first introduced into service in the 23rd century. The original design was created and used by the Klingon Imperial Fleet. The Klingons were able to design an effective ship that had more firepower than a Federation ship during that time. The D7 class shields are less advanced than the Federation, but has more firepower, giving it a huge edge during combat. The Romulans recognized how efficient the D7 design was, and they were able to trade with the Klingons to get their hands on this vessel. The D7 class cruiser is 228 meters in length and has a complement crew of 430. The crew is able to act as Marines or specialized crew members if needed. This vessel can go up to warp 9 and is armed with 2 disruptor cannons, 1 photon torpedo launcher, a magnetic pulse generator, and phaser emitters. The ship is also defended by a deflector shield and a cloaking device. The Katinga class was introduced into service to replace a D7 class battlecruiser around the 2270s. The translation of the Katinga is the bringer of destruction. This vessel has the same design as the D7 class, but is outfitted with more advanced technology. It was considered one of the Klingons' most powerful warship in the Empire. The vessel served as a flagship during its time, and is still in service during the Dominion and the Klingon-Cardassian War. Since the creation of more advanced ships, the Katinga has been put on patrol and escort duty. During invasions, we got to see this vessel in action instead of its regular missions. The ship warp drive is capable of going 9.6, but when it was first introduced, it could only go up to warp 5. The vessel is 349.42 meters in length and has a width of 251.56 meters. It can fit a crew of 800 and is armed with 6 disruptor cannons and 2 photon torpedo launchers. It's defended by a deflector shield and a cloaking device. Even though the ship is smaller than Federation ships, it's still able to destroy and even damage ships that's double its size. The Vor'cha class is also referred to as the Klingon bird of prey, was put into service by the Klingon Empire during the 23rd century. It followed the same design as the earlier bird of prey called the Vo'n'talk class. The Vo'n'talk was quickly replaced after the creation of the Vor'cha class. This vessel was slightly bigger than the earlier bird of prey, being at 157.56 meters in length and 181.54 meters in width. The Vor'cha is also classified as a scout ship, but in the show we got to see it more as an attack ship than anything else. Due to its size and strength, it became the Empire's most used ship. The Vor'cha class is also a very iconic ship during the 90s. The vessel can be used for multiple missions, able to handle frontline combat, but also can be used to raid the Empire's enemies. We also got to see this vessel used for independent missions as well. It has a warp drive capable of going 9.6 and needs a crew of 12. It's also capable of carrying more crew members if needed. The vessel is armed with 2 disruptor cannons and 1 torpedo launcher. It's defended by a deflector shield and a cloaking device. There is also another version of this vessel put into service during the 21st century called the Vor'cha class. It still hasn't been able to replace the Vor'cha, but it's still useful when needing a bigger version of a bird of prey. This vessel is classified as a light cruiser and is between 230 to 678.36 meters in length and is 780.62 meters in width. It can fit a crew of 500 and it can go up to warp 9.6. It is armed with 4 disruptor cannons and 2 torpedo launchers. It's defended by a deflector shield and a cloaking device. The Vor'cha class never became as popular as other ships on the list because towards the end of the 24th century, a more advanced cruiser was introduced called the Vor'cha class. The Vor'cha class is an attack cruiser and is one of the largest vessels in the Klingon Imperial fleet. It was first introduced into service towards the mid to late 24th century. This vessel is more of a modern type warship compared to the other ships I've reviewed so far. It provides a lot of what other Klingon ships are lacking, such as support and transporting elements. Very few Klingon ships are big enough to carry enough soldiers and supplies for invasions of planets and space stations. This vessel can carry 1,900 crew members and troops. The ship is 481.32 meters in length and is 341.76 meters in width. An interesting fact about this ship is that it's very successful for long-range pursuits and excellent patrol ship. We won't see this ship in the back lines due to its firepower and its dominance over newer Federation starships. I can't see the Klingons using the Vor'cha to patrol their borders during times of war. It's common to see this vessel as a command ship or a flagship in the fleet. The vessel has a warp drive capable of going 9.6. It's armed with 18 disruptor cannons, 1 large disruptor, and 3 torpedo launchers. The ship is defended by a deflector shield and a cloaking device. The Vor'cha was replaced being the main flagship and command ship after the full deployment of the Negh'var warship, which was the largest class cruiser operated by the Klingon Empire during the late 24th century. The Negh'var was developed in secret, and very few High Council members knew about this project. The Klingons' main goal was to develop a ship that was agile and had strong firepower. They didn't want to develop a ship that solely relied on heavy firepower. The Klingons operate within a unit, and most of their ships are very agile, so having a slow ship would mess with the Klingon tactics. This vessel is 687.32 meters in length and is 470.09 meters in width. To get a better understanding on the size of the ship, it's a little bigger than the Starfleet Sovereign class vessel. The Negh'var is able to carry 2,700 crew members and troops. It has a warp drive capable of going 9.6. It's armed with 1 large forward disruptor, 20 disruptor cannons, and 4 torpedo launchers. It's defended by a deflector shield and a cloaking device. Due to its size, it's capable of carrying a shuttlecraft. The first time we got to see this vessel in action was during the Klingon-Cardassian War. It was used as a flagship by the Chancellor. The Klingon fleet is specifically designed for maneuverability and to overwhelm their enemies. Every one of their ships is able to perform multiple missions if needed. The Klingon's smaller ships, such as the Bird of Prey, is capable of raiding, outflanking, scouting, and even spying on their enemies. Their bigger ships, such as the Vor'cha, is built to hold the line and can be used as a command ship during attacks. The Klingons are a warrior race, and their ships are specifically designed to attack and invade. You won't see a science or medical vessel within the fleet, unless you're referring to the ships in Star Trek Online, which is a different story. So let me know your thoughts about the Klingon fleet, and which sci-fi faction fleet do you want me to analyze next. If you enjoyed this video, then please like and subscribe, and also don't forget to follow me on my socials. If you enjoy my content, then you might enjoy these 2 other videos displayed on the screen. Thank you for watching Utopian Broadcast, and I'll see you next time on my channel. Thank you.